When I first reached out to the private investigator, I wasn't sure what I truly wanted. Maybe closure, maybe punishment, or perhaps forgiveness that I hadn't earned. It had been 3 years since I last saw Daniel, my ex-husband, the man I had betrayed. The guilt had never left me, even though I'd tried to bury it under the noise of a new life that never quite felt real. Daniel had been everything a person could ask for. Kind, patient, and loyal in ways that used to make me feel unworthy. And maybe that's why I ruined it. I convinced myself that his calm meant he didn't care, that his love had grown dull. When someone new at work started showing interest, I mistook attention for passion. It didn't take long for my secret to spill into the light, and when it did, Daniel left without a word. No arguments. No accusations. Just a quiet departure that hurt far more than any fight could. Years later, that silence haunted me. I didn't want to win him back. I knew I had lost that right, but I needed to know if he was okay. I wanted to believe he had rebuilt his life. So, I hired a private investigator named Mark, a quiet man with sharp eyes who promised results within a week. I told him I just needed to know if Daniel was happy, if he had moved on. Mark didn't ask why. He just nodded and began his work. The first few days felt endless. Every hour dragged by, my mind filled with memories of the life I had thrown away. I remembered the mornings Daniel would make coffee for both of us, even when we'd fought the night before. I remembered how he used to wait for me by the window when I came home late, pretending not to worry. And I remembered the last look in his eyes when he found out the truth. No rage, just heartbreak. On the 6th day, Mark called and said he had what I asked for. I met him at a small cafe downtown. He placed a folder on the table, worn from handling, and slid it toward me. My hands trembled as I opened it. There were photos, Daniel walking in a park, sitting by a lake, helping an older man load groceries into a car. In one photo, he was smiling. For a brief moment, I felt relief wash over me. He looked peaceful. But then Mark spoke. He's been living in a small town 2 hours away. Works as a volunteer at a community center. Doesn't talk much about his past, he said softly. I nodded, unsure of what to say. Then he hesitated. There's something else. I think you should know. My heart sank instantly. What is it? I asked. Mark pulled out another envelope and handed it to me. He's not well, he said. I froze. He was diagnosed with a heart condition last year. He's been in and out of the hospital. Doctors say stress made it worse. My breath caught. Guilt hit me like a wave. Does he have anyone with him? I whispered. Mark shook his head. He lives alone. But there's a woman who visits often, his neighbor. Seems she checks on him, brings food sometimes. They're not together though. She told me he rarely talks about anything personal. Tears blurred my vision. I couldn't breathe. I had imagined him happy, rebuilt, free of the pain I caused. Instead, he was living quietly, carrying scars I had carved into him. I asked Mark if he thought it would be wrong for me to visit. He paused before answering. You can. But if you do, be ready to hear what he truly feels. It might not be what you hope for. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every cruel word I'd said during our final months together. Every lie. Every moment I chose someone else over him. The next morning, I decided to go. Not to ask for forgiveness, but to say sorry in person, no matter how late it was. When I reached his town, it was quiet, almost frozen in time. The community center stood at the corner, a faded sign above its door. I saw him through the window, sitting with a group of children, helping one of them fix a broken toy. His smile was gentle, the same one I had fallen in love with years ago. I stayed outside watching, afraid to disturb the peace he had built. After an hour, I gathered my courage and stepped inside. He looked up, and for a second, I saw recognition in his eyes. Then came a look of calm, not anger or surprise. Hi, Daniel, I said quietly. He didn't respond right away, just studied me carefully. Finally, he said, You didn't need to come. His voice was tired, but not cold. I tried to explain, to tell him how sorry I was, how I'd thought of him every day. But he stopped me gently. You don't need to carry this forever, he said. I forgave you a long time ago. I just couldn't stay where everything reminded me of what we lost. His words broke me more than any accusation could. I wanted to say I still cared, but it didn't feel fair to him. Before I left, he smiled faintly and said, I hope you find peace too. I nodded, tears falling freely. As I walked back to my car, I realized that I had found what I came looking for. Not forgiveness, but truth. Daniel had rebuilt his life in silence, carrying the pain I gave him but refusing to let it define him. The private investigator's words had shattered me, but Daniel's calm had healed something in return. I drove away knowing that sometimes, the deepest love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go and praying the person you hurt finds the happiness you couldn't give them.